Welcome to the Paul Lovette Show, the show where truth meets bold patriotism as we fight for the very soul of America. I am your host, Paul Lovette, a proud and unapologetic Black American conservative. My story is one of faith, perseverance, and an unshakable belief in America's promise for every citizen, regardless of skin color. We also confront the issues of the day, both domestic and foreign, and we battle for Christian values in an era when Democrats and the radical left spreads immorality and seeks to tear down and destroy every moral and righteous value we hold dear. When race and politics collide, we will tackle it head on from a Black American conservative who knows this nation's potential. So get ready for common sense conservatism, unfiltered opinions, and patriotic passion. Can we save America's soul? You bet we can, with God, courage, and Christian American values. This is the Paul Lovette Show. Let's dive in and fight for the future of our republic. Welcome to our very first episode. I am so glad you have joined me. I'll take a moment here to kind of discuss what my plans are for this show. The show is not going to be a clone of other conservative talk show hosts. My goal for this is to view things from a Black conservative standpoint. While I am quite conservative myself, I am not a carbon copy, and I do part in certain areas with the status quo conservative. So, I also value your opinion and thoughts. This show is ultimately for you. And I'm hoping that our community grows and that we will develop something very unique here. Starting for our first episode, what I would like to touch on is the issue of Black Americans and the enslavement and entrapment of Black Americans, particularly inner city, by Democrats and the radical left. And what do I mean? They are constantly telling us that we are victims of this group, that group, primarily whites. Whites are doing this to blacks, whites are doing that to black. And the truth of the matter is, blacks are doing things to blacks, or blacks are not doing things for blacks. So I want to touch on this first episode because fundamentally the importance of education. So we want to look at K through 12 Black students' performance. Because when Democrats say the jobs are being taken from the blacks, the college admissions are being taken from blacks, well, no, it's not true. We need to look at what is the performance of Black students versus white students and Asians who are at the top of the educational. And to put simple, Asians do so well because their families place value on education, and their entire drive and childhood is making the grade. And if we can bring that culture to the Black community, to the inner city community, we will see results. I can tell you in my personal life, I came from poor. Nobody was paying for my college. I went to the military to pay for college. And what I found was when I, Paul, did the work, I got the reward. And that is a fundamental message that needs to be given to every Black student, every Black child in K through 12. So we're going to start by looking at an article from The Hill. Let me bring that up for us. Black educators warn of what is lost if the Department of Education is shuttered. This is an article from The Hill by Cheyenne M. Daniels, February 10 this year. And yes, the discussion is the President Trump shutting down the Department of Education. All we're hearing is hysterics. Oh, the world is ending, when really the president is sending it back to the states. And I can divert on the structure of our Constitution and the powers is all powers not vested with the federal government lies with the states. And states are more responsive and clearly a smaller subset and representative of their people. So let those people decide what they're going to do with the education. Some states are going to thrive from having control of education, because the president's going to get rid of the Department of Ed, but that money and resources are going to the individual states. California, probably going to screw it up. New York, probably going to screw it up. But other states, more conservative states, they're going to thrive and blossom from having this control. So back to our article, I'm going to look at a few quotes from Black people or heads of organizations that Miss Daniels contacted. So here's our first one. But educators warn of the loss of the federal agency will exacerbate racial disparities. And we always hear that, racial disparities. Remember that term. In schools across the nation, including universities and colleges. What does that mean? How? You're going from the monolith of the federal government and this federal agency down to a more dynamic and responsive state level. So it's a good thing. I reject this statement, of course. And then our next one here, for folks who have been committed to protecting public education for Black and brown children and really protecting Black students' experiences. And this is from the CEO of Black Educator Advocates. That takes me to a point of we're so focused on individuals and separating ourselves out into ethnic groups that we're missing the forest for the trees. We really should be striving toward a standard and maintaining that standard. So stop saying Black children are less and start saying they are just as valuable and has just as much potential as white and Asian students. God made us all. We all have that same aptitude for learning. And I will tell you for myself, when I look back as a child, and my parents were not focused on education. There are a lot of issues there that they were overcoming for themselves. And I can look back and see where obviously, how would I know to apply myself? And I can look back and see, wow, if I had really applied myself at certain points in my educational path, it was exponential reward that would have been at the far end as I graduated and went off into life. But those are opportunities that's missed, and you're coming, and I have to pay catch up, which I did a lot of that in my lifetime. I'm in my 5th decade on this planet. And then here's our third quote here. While nearly half of white students have taken one advanced placement or AP course in high school, less than 9% of Blacks can say the same. We're going to hit that a little more as we hit our next slides. Why? Why are only 9% of Black students? Well, it just goes back to the fact that there's not that expectation or that push or drive to excel in your school subjects. So if we ultimately, one of my solutions for this matter is to put a push on adding or requiring value, if you will. That'll make a little more sense as we get later on in education, and for our kids, our inner city Black kids, to have that passion, the same passion they may put toward the NBA, NFL. I'm going to be an NFL star, an NBA superstar. Well, let's take that drive and that passion and put that toward education, because the reality is you're not gonna the vast majority is never going to end up in the NBA or the NFL. It's just the way things are. Just look at the numbers, look at the stats. But we can take that passion and drive and put it toward education, your math, your English, your history, and all our subjects. Blacks can excel. We can catch up to whites statistically. We can overcome whites, and we can hit Asians, go after the Asians, and be at that level. And we can surpass, or even if we do not surpass, which I truly believe we could, we can be competitors. And really, it's not a negative competitiveness. I often think about that as I'm looking at my kids and the activities they're in. Today's society is very risk averse to competitiveness. Somehow they think it's a bad word. There's some healthy competitiveness. So you have a group that's engaged in some activity, and well, let's make this personal. I remember from high school, my U.S. history class, I loved U.S. history. That's one thing I really loved. And I had a competitor in that class. His name was Eric. I still remember it. And a white guy, and we competed in that class. And things then were not about race in that class anyway. It was both our passion. So when we took tests, the whole class waited to see who's going to get the better grade, Paul or Eric. And I worked my butt off for that. And I believe it was our final exam, or maybe a midterm. I think it was the final exam. And we took the test. A couple of days later, she's calling out the grades, and it was down to, you guessed it, me and Eric. And when she announced his grade and that I was the high grade, that was the fruits of my labor, my effort. But also it was that healthy competitiveness between he and I. We both greatly respected one another, and it was just a way we're actually pushing each other to be better as you strive to best the other, but not in a negative way. It was just that competitive, that healthy competitiveness. And that's what I would love to see the Black community, Black students get that back, as in we are fighting for the best. We are striving for the best, and nobody's going to hand that to you. Democrats keep telling you that's what they're going to do, but hey, when did the civil rights, when was Dr. King, alive and fighting for our rights? And here we are, 2025, and nothing's happened. Well, we're being sold a bill of goods by Democrats. So let's push that aside. Let's, us as individuals, push our Black kids to embrace and love education and push for it. So let me move on, and we're going to hit some of the stats here on Black pupil performance. So as we go here, and we're going to look at this slide here, academic performance. So, and the credential here, the National Assessment in Education Progress. This is the nation's report card. And as you can see here, Black students consistently score lower on average than whites and Asians. So that's where the bar is. So we're looking at only 13% of fourth graders proficient in reading, compared to 45% of Asians and 32% of whites. That is shocking to me, and I hope it is shocking to you, because it must change. And let's look at math. Only 11% of Black 8th graders are proficient, 45% of Asians, and 32% of whites. So that's the numbers. I mean, clearly, obviously, there's a standard here. Asians are meeting that standard the best, whites next, and then Blacks way down at the bottom. And we must change this for our kids if we are going to improve and get the educational opportunity and the financial. Here, AP classes. That was one of the quotes from earlier. So black students, they're saying underrepresented in AP and STEM classes. So here, only 9% of black students participate in AP classes 2020, compared to 18% of whites and 30% of Asians. What does that show us? Once again, Asians have that value and believe in the value of a good education. 30% taking AP classes. Blacks are 9%. So you can't complain about blacks students not participating in AP classes when they are not performing. I mean, the 13% in reading versus 45% for Asian students. 11% in math, 45% for Asian students, 32% for white students. If you don't have the education, you can't take the AP classes. So our students, our black kids, have already been sold down the river long before you're hitting AP classes in high school. If you're not reading in fourth grade and doing math fourth grade and through eighth grade, the foundation has been missed. And we have to get that foundation back. And it's not something overnight. It's not anything that the Democrat Party or leftists are going to do. It is for individual black families and us as a culture to value education and push our kids to make the grade. And when that happens, and it's time to go to college, they're going to have the same grades or better grades than whites and Asians. And then you'll see the admission rates for blacks skyrocket. So, devil's advocate, okay, if once we make our kids value education and make the grade, and then we're seeing that whites and Asians are getting admitted to schools, even though our black kids are making the grade, then we have a problem. Until our kids are making the grade, scoring with or above Asians and whites, we can't complain. We cannot blame the white man for this. It is who we should be blaming is us, because we have not ensured that our kids got the education K through 12 to be successful in college and subsequently in life and subsequently in their careers. If you're not building the foundation, you can't expect the building to stand. It's going to crumble. So let's move on. Oh, college readiness. SAT, ACT scores. 2023, our black kids average 926 on the SAT compared to 1063 for whites, 1249 for Asians. SAT, and California, for California to have done away with SAT and ACT scoring to get into colleges is just horrifically wrong and damaging for kids. So those are standards that the education colleges, before they were corrupted by liberalism, established as, hey, our students or entering students have this level of education, critical thinking, and logic, and they reflect this in the scores, and this is what we're looking at. So California, we've lost that, but I can tell you for my kids, we ensure that they are taking, actually my oldest, she'll be taking the SAT here coming up in the next month or so, because she is covered for any California college, or should she leave the state, she has it because she will have met the standard. She will have excelled at SAT and the ACT. So we can't complain our kids are not getting what they deserve when they're not making the score. I mean, look at this here. So I implore us as a people, and I implore us as Americans to push our black kids and the black community to value education. Until we value education within the home, they're never going to reap the benefits of that. So I want to also, I don't want to just talk about that. I want to share with you some of my ideas for resolving this. So as a as a family, and I'm not sure if you can do this legislatively, but here's our first solution. But it should be a personal goal for our community. Our black children must make a C average at a minimum. That is our minimum. And of course, this is for our normal kids. If kids are on the spectrum, IEP, disabled in any way, or obviously there's special accommodations for them. So put those aside, but we're talking about your normal mainstream kid should be required to make that C at a minimum. Ideally, of course, we want more, but if we make our community standard a C, we're in a great position for the future. So looking at inner city or any black family on welfare, government benefits, it is my position that a portion of that benefit be tied to their kids' grades, and that if they're falling below a C, then they should receive a reduced benefit. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? I do that because suddenly there's value to education. If my kid is making that C, I'm getting the full benefit. And let me tie this back to you, since I did come from a poor background. So I know firsthand that families would, women would have more kids just to get more benefit for the government. So another child is valued because there's more money coming into the household. So if we suddenly say, okay, you're going to get a reduced benefit because your child is not making the grade, well, suddenly that mom or household is going to say, hey, are you doing your homework? Checking each night, are you doing your homework? Are you learning? Are you making the grade? Because I want the most benefit, the most money. And that, I'll try not to get off track here. The benefit welfare was a evil thing that Lyndon B. Johnson and Democrats did with the war on poverty. It institutionalized dependency while ejecting the black father from his home and from his family. And we'll touch on that in other episodes as I explore those areas. But once again, solution is for families on welfare to tie a portion of their benefit to their children's grades. Next, for families that aren't on welfare, but we want to impact them so that they have a value understand the value of education, or will place a value on education. So for kids that fall under that C average, I think parents should be required to do an after school or weekend detention. And of course, no parent wants to be sitting at a school because their kid didn't make the grade. There's other things they could be doing, and I understand there are other impacts, employment impacts that could possibly impact with that, but we need to find a way to impact the family to place a value on their children's education. It is not my desire, to be clear, it is not my desire for people to be criminalized as a result of this. Unlike Kamala Harris, who with her sponsorship and advocacy for SB 1317, a truancy law in California that enabled counties such as Orange County, California, to prosecute and actually incarcerate parents actually a single mother for her child's truancy. That is not the answer to criminalize parents for kids' truancy. There are lots of options for us to address it. Putting moms in jail is not one. So back to our main topic here for today. Our black children are just as capable as any other child of any other race. The difference is the value we place on education. If I could get every black family to have that passion and the appreciation for the value of education, it is the foundation of a lifetime. It is what enables kids to get into college. It enables them to get great careers when they leave college. So I implore us to have that value, come up with the solutions to ensure that inner city blacks, as well as any other blacks, understand the value of education for our kids. It is the foundation, and if it's a rotten foundation, the house will crumble. Democrats, liberals cannot give you this. They cannot give our kids this. It is incumbent upon us as parents to instill this work ethic, this education ethic in our black children. So I would love to get your feedback and your solutions. Please leave them in the comments below. I will also provide an email address for a more private means. But this is our first episode, and I thank you for being here. Until we meet again, thank you.